So let's talk about that. WWE internally has listed Becky Lynch on the roster. So we haven't seen Becky Lynch show up on WWE television. But I think if WWE is going to be smart here, and if they're going to introduce women's mid-card titles, you got to have a veteran carry that belt at first. Use the mid-card title as a way to climb the ladder system, right? And if you're the WWE, the way to do that is very specifically the way they did it with the IC title. Look at the Intercontinental title. Look at Gunther. He held that belt for a very long time, and then he went up and got the World Heavyweight Championship. You got to do the same thing with the mid-card titles for the women. So I think you would actually want to start off with a veteran or somebody who is like considered one of the top stars in a certain way. Because if you're WWE, for example, and you have these women mid-card belts, I don't know, for the intent of this conversation, let's just say women's IC title and women's US title, right? On Raw, if you have Becky Lynch return and there's a tournament for the women's Intercontinental Championship, let's say Becky Lynch were to return and win it, it's a very good thing for her to hold that belt because eventually somebody has to take the belt off of her, right? And the way that it works here is Becky Lynch could go up to the main event scene again after holding that belt, and on top of that, she could drop the belt to an up-and-comer. Now, this is where WWE has to be really smart here, because if you look at the WWE roster, right, and you look at the women's roster on Raw, we're talking about Sonya Deville. Like we just talked about a 10-women tag team match. You got Lyra Valkyria, which it would be really cool for Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch to revisit. But you don't have that many talent who are showcased in the mid-card just yet in a prominent way. In fact, I would say you actually see it more on SmackDown. But you do have Io Sky. You have, obviously, the women from Damage Control. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, if you have Becky Lynch win and she drops it to an up-and-comer, that would be really, really good. Now on SmackDown, for example, yes, Michin, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, there's women's storylines that are happening that don't involve for the world title, which would be really unique. But it really just depends. There's got to be a balance, a roster rebalancing. That's really what it comes down to. Because on SmackDown, you have Candice LeRae. Shout out to her. She's the WWE Speed Champion. You have Blair Davenport. I don't know what the hell is really happening with Blair Davenport. You know what I mean? But you have this stuff.
Dwayne Jackson super chatted $5. They could introduce mid-card title if they do a King of Ring, Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, so Dwayne continues with the super chats. Thank you, Dwayne. He says they could introduce a mid-card title if they do a King and Queen of the Ring, which is very true. Very, very true. And that would actually make it a little bit more worthy of winning the title. I think you would have to do tournaments of some kind. But I do think in order for them to successfully do these mid-card women title belts, they do have to restructure the rosters just a little bit. They have to balance them a little bit. Tegan Knox, she's not on TV, bro. She ain't doing anything. Naomi, she ain't going to win the big one just yet. But she's a veteran. She is somebody that fans absolutely love.
David Primero super chatted $9.99. What would happen if Tiffany cashes in during Liv versus Nia at Crown Jewel? Which title will be on the line? MHM. Maybe Becky Lynch returns at Survivor Series to help Rhea at War Games.
This is a great question from David. He says, what would happen if Tiffany cashes in during Liv versus Nia at Crown Jewel? I mean, her contract is technically for Nia. I don't know. That's a really good question. That's a very good question. Very, very good question. I don't think she's going to cash in on either one of them. So to answer that, I don't think any title would be on the line, personally. Becky Lynch returning to Survivor Series to help Rhea at War Games. That would make a lot of sense. But it also makes a lot of sense if Becky Lynch were to help, if she were to return to Survivor Series and help Rhea Ripley at War Games, then you probably take her out of the equation for the mid-card championship. Right? That's what it comes down to. Becky Lynch is returning to the WWE, guys. She ain't going to AEW. For anybody who thinks she's going to AEW, that's definitely not happening. That is definitely not happening at all whatsoever. But just keep that in mind. Like, that's one of the beauty. That's kind of the beauty of this, right? Is like, we know she's going to be back. When is she going to be back? Becky helping Rhea Ripley is very interesting, considering that they have history as well. But why did WWE put her internally on the roster? Guys, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, they're WWE lifers at this point. I think wrestling fans are just obsessed with the idea of people leaving, but you got to be somewhat realistic. And also, one thing that you have to keep in mind here, and this is what I love about David's super chat, Becky Lynch returning as Survivor Series to help Rhea adds more to the top feud. But if they're introducing mid-card titles, would it make more sense for Becky to be there? Does Rhea Ripley really need Becky Lynch's help? I don't know. WWE will have to figure that out for sure. Absolutely, without a doubt, they will have to figure that out. I think Becky Lynch is returning to WWE. I think WWE has always known that she was returning. She is listed internally on the roster. And I do believe to a certain extent that Becky Lynch is going to be very, very long-term with WWE. I think she's going to be an ambassador. I think she will be a part-timer. Obviously, she puts motherhood first, but her husband works there. It just doesn't make any sense for her to be in AEW. That's what it comes down to, my friends. It just doesn't make sense for her to be in AEW. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't help AEW. So let's not get it twisted. That's what it is. That's what it is. You guys got to remember this. Remember, people said that Mercedes would go to AEW and absolutely be a game changer. That didn't happen. Becky Lynch would not be walking into AEW with the name Becky Lynch. She would be walking in with Rebecca Knox or some other bullshit ass name. She wouldn't have her WWE name. The WWE name is the value. That's why WWE is so big on these trademarks. So I see a lot of people in chat, they're like, oh, it would have been cool to see her in AEW. No, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have helped AEW. It would have cost AEW money. But the reality is people know Becky Lynch because she's Becky Lynch. And it goes back to what I was saying about the mid-card titles. The mid-card titles are designed to really help get somebody to the next level, right? That's what they should be there for, to help bring somebody to the next level. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but that's how I feel these mid-card titles have always been. When they're booked very well, it's because they elevated talent. So imagine if Becky Lynch were to come in, and win the mid-card title, put over somebody that's up and coming, and then go back to the top of the scene. That's good. That's fine. If somebody beats Becky Lynch, it adds a lot of value and benefit to them. We just got another super chat for $2. K West says, where has Charlotte been? Charlotte, I have no idea where Charlotte has been. Nobody really knows. She was injured. Then it looks like she's coming back, and it looks like rehabilitation was good. Then there's been some rumors that Charlotte is cleared and ready to go. Charlotte she's massive star. Massive star. But you know what? If WWE introduces a U.S. title on SmackDown for the women, give it to Charlotte. And then have Charlotte lose to somebody up and coming. Chelsea Green, Meechin, Piper Niven, right? That's how it should be. I'm excited to see what happens. But it's going to be a really crazy time because WWE, when people get injured or when people take time off, WWE keeps moving on. And some people just, some people just they fall behind.